Hello, everyone. This is Meredith with a Y, and I am your host, Meredith Willits. Today, we are going to go deep, changing lives, and I am giving you the keys to the castle. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Thank you so much for tuning in. This is Meredith with a Y, and I am your host, Meredith Willits. And today, I have one of my favorite humans on and favorite spirits, Alison Maguire. She's going to be here today talking about spirituality and her path and her job and her being a mom and all the other good stuff in between. So thank you so much for being here, Alison. I'm so excited.
I'm so excited. Thank you so much for having me.
Yes. And you and I have been connected now for, is it 3 years, 2 years ish?
Yeah, two,
Right
3 years
around.
for sure. Yeah, it's been
Yeah.
a little while now. I'll never forget the first time I called you. I was losing my mind.
That's so good. I love that. I love that. And so now we talk all the time, which is wonderful.
Yes.
But I really wanted to connect with you because I've had two other amazing souls on. The Thomas, Kundalini yogi, and then Misha. And they're both young people that are just starting out and like really forging their path, but not that much baggage to have to, I mean, they have that freedom, right? And you, however, are a business owner and a mother of two, a wife, an entrepreneur. And so I wanted to kind of get that view of someone that's, in it every day and has all these responsibilities and can't go sit on the top of a mountain and be the Buddha,
Sounds
without
nice though.
touching people.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it adds such a layer.
Yeah. So can you tell everyone that's listening like a little bit about yourself and your career, and then we'll go from there?
Yeah, sure. So, um, I guess I'll start with the career and then roll into personal. So, I'm a realtor. I'm a business owner of a real estate team. So, I have a business partner, and he and I, my partner Brad and I, own the Moore Maguire real estate team at Keller Williams. So, we have a team of agents that specializes in sales. Um, and then personally, with real estate, I own properties. My husband and I manage the properties together. We do rentals and things like that. So I'm passionate about all things real estate and about entrepreneurialism and all of those kind of exciting to me sort of business bubbles, if you will. And then on the and I'm also very passionate about women in business. I've been kind of putting together groups of women moms who are in business, stuff like that. So I think having all these layers has enabled me to kind of hone in on like where the holes are and where people need support. So that's just an aside. But then personally, I have two kids. I have a 4 and a 6-year-old, Eden and Nicholas. I'm married and run a household amongst other things. So yeah, there's a lot of balls in the air.
That's so cool. So I mean, everything that you just mentioned, from real estate to rentals to um, having a partner
Yeah.
outside of a husband,
Hmm.
having kids, having a team, so there's extra managing humans. So you're definitely not on the mountain, just by yourself, meditating all day. You're literally in with people and personalities. And I know that you rent to young people at college, so you're dealing with them and their parents and
Yes.
all those personalities. So you are really in the human experience all day, every day. And honestly, what bigger purchase does a human make than buying a house? Like, this
Yeah.
is you're literally a part of a person's largest expense. And there's a lot of emotions when we're letting go of money and we're making this. And so you're a part of a lot of these emotional experiences for a lot of different people, and you're trying to help manage other folks through their path of doing that same thing and leading them in this way. So when I'm looking at that, I'm like, okay, this is a person who definitely is going to want to find solace and peace somewhere because in your daily life, that's not a natural thing. Your natural
Yeah.
tendency for your experience is going to be very high key, very stressful, very emotionally based. And so you tell me, because I actually don't know this. Did the spiritual journey, if you will, start before real estate, during, or like when? How did that come about?
Um, so I guess just to quickly touch on something you just said too, when you look at being in real estate, I always say it's like being a therapist. So ultimately, we help people buy and sell homes, we help people move in and move out, we handle rental issues, whatever. But at the end of the day, I'm managing people's emotions.
Yeah,
So yeah, it's kind of I don't want to say it's a huge load, but it's a lot of dancing with that. So I think that I've always been interested in um, figuring people out and emotions and all of that stuff in my own emotions. So I think I came to it very naturally. I don't think there was like one specific monumental thing that happened that kind of like threw me into spirituality. I think I was always interested in it. I think it's kind of ebbed and flowed through my life. And I've been recognizing where I need it more. And, just like anything else, it's like when you have a pain point, you tend to pivot. So I think I reached a point probably when I first reached out to you where I was in a pretty big pain point. I was totally overwhelmed emotionally, physically, and it all comes from emotions. And then you're physically overwhelmed, and I was drained because I was feeding all of those things you just talked about. I was feeding into my team, I was feeding into my family, I was feeding into my business, and I wasn't feeding myself.
yeah,
Emotionally, I wasn't taking care of myself, and I was just doing things that were out of alignment. And so I think from the pain really is where the spirituality kind of blossomed,
yeah,
so to speak. I think that's kind of where I found it in a
yeah.
deeper level.
Yeah, and when you're talking, I'm kind of like watching, the transition, and that's kind of how it happens, right? No one's going to church the day they win the lottery because they're having such a bad day, and then they're looking for God. There kind of needs to be that little bit of going in, that deepness, that I'm not right. I'm not in alignment, like you said. I'm not in
Yeah.
alignment. Things feel off. I'm uncomfortable. Not everything's going the way I really would like them to. So
Mhm.
then you go on your walkabout. Then you go on your spiritual journey or your, training for a marathon or eating healthy or juicing, whatever it is for each person. It's something that it's like, all right, I need something and I'm gonna go look for it. And it's so interesting, like, you never have, like I always say, you're no one finds Jesus and awakens on the beaches of Turks and Caicos. You know what I mean? Like, sometimes you gotta get in it and have a little bit of, as you and I always say, kerfluffle to understand that you're it's time to pivot. It's time to
Yeah.
do something different. This isn't working anymore.
Yes, exactly. So I don't want to say I hit bottom, but I hit such a pain point that it was like, I cannot do this anymore I cannot keep going the way that I'm going anymore. And I think so many people hit that. I mean, I see a lot of women that are in business specifically hit that. I mean, I think everybody does at some point especially when you're kind of like a hard driver. Like I'm definitely like a hard driver. I'm a leader. I'm that personality that's always pushing forward. So I think I was pushing so hard when it was just like, okay, you can't keep doing this. You just
Yeah.
can't, like, there was something that just happened that was like, that's it. Like, you cannot keep doing this and you need to make a change. So, um,
And what's funny is I'm watching you. And you and I, when we're in an appointment, it's not on video, so it's really lovely to see you, like, looking around like I do. Like, you're literally looking around the room, AKA your brain, for the next word and the emotion, and I love that you're searching, and so I'm literally watching you look around your brain, and I love that so much. Um, but when you're talking about it and you're, like, looking and I'm watching you, what I'm really seeing is just a depletion where
Yeah.
you're just giving and giving and giving and giving and giving and giving and giving, and you're, like, giving to your kids and all these folks that we just mentioned, and at the end of the day, and I'm literally watching this because I can't tell you, as you know, but, even more than what you know, how many realtors, female realtors,
Yeah.
brokers are my clients. And I think that as we're having this conversation, it's because you're giving to your family and your kids and your parents and your siblings and your clients and your team, and you literally have given so much because everyone needs it.
And it's
You're
24/7.
and it's 24/7, you're never putting the phone down, the email never ends, and one day you wake up and go, "Holy shit, it's them or me.
Yeah. Exactly.
It's them or me, but, comma, how do I keep doing what I love, being a mom and a wife and a daughter and an employee and a business owner? How do I keep doing that, but still somewhere where am I gonna give back from?" Because a lot of these relationships, they're not energy exchanges, like, yes, you get paid by being, a boss or selling a house or listing a home or whatever, but it's a different if it's a different exchange, and we don't get a lot back from our kids in the way, that's maybe is obvious all the time. But then we're like, wait, I'm giving of myself to everyone and I'm not even giving back to myself. And so that's what I'm watching. I'm literally watching you watch yourself be depleted as you're looking back to that time. And what else is coming to me as I'm sitting here talking to you and being able to see you is I'm also watching you because usually I mean, we have different exchanges, but I'm watching you be able to pull out these words, alignment, pain point. And I'm watching you go, I have a word to define how I'm feeling and how where I need to go. And I'm not in line. I know what that feels like. I know there's a word for it. And now I'm in line. I know what that feels like. I know what that looks like. And I think a lot of times on a spiritual journey, and what you and I talk about on a lot is these different things that maybe most people aren't aware of, be it the language or the concept or the trauma response or whatever it is. And because there's no word for it outside of your normal religious vernacular of sin, repent, right? That's what we're
Mhm.
brought up with is that sin, you did something bad, repent, ask for a and that's what you have. Or
Right.
ghosting is that's it. That's the vernacular that we're given as children to know you've done something bad, now you need to ask for forgiveness. But there's never been until in my opinion recent, I mean, I don't know, where it's like now I have a word for how to get back to alignment and really kind of being well with yourself that has nothing to do with the world. It's not that I'm doing something bad or good, I just don't feel right. It's
Mhm.
not that I'm doing and need to ask for forgiveness, I just feel like I'm not in my own path,
Yes.
journey, alignment, grounding. I'm living in my head too much. I need to get down inside my body and be a part of the earth and go walk outside with my shoes off because I'm living in my head and I'm thinking too much.
Exactly. Yes. That's exactly such a good you always put words to my emotions, but I think that's such a good way to explain it because it's not that I've even necessarily, I think from the outside, I don't think that it may even look like I've made big sweeping changes, but I feel like I've made big sweeping changes
Yeah.
over the time that you and I have talked because it's been it's been an inside uh it's been an inside job. I hate to use that because it's so cliche, but really like it's been such an inside work for me. And I think just through identifying like where when it feels like I'm on my path and when it feels like I'm um, not in alignment, and then just kind of making those little adjustments and being able to identify how I am feeling and then kind of push back into that mode. And then it's like this replenishment happens, it's like I'm replenished, I can give out to everybody. I have that I have a different perspective, like my perspective completely shifts.
Yeah.
is not like it's like, okay, I think we always expect all these things around us to shift. Okay, people need to act differently. My kids need to behave. My team needs to be doing X, all of this stuff.
And then I'll be okay.
And then I'll be
And then
happy.
I'll be okay.
Right. And then I'll be okay. Like, I'll never forget something you said to me. And I know, I'm not the only one you say it to, but it always rings in my head. You said, it's like life is just like laundry. Somebody is always, it's never done. You can't wait for the laundry to be done to be happy.
Yep.
Somebody's always about to take a sweatshirt off,
Someone's
which
just
is so true. And such,
yeah.
as a woman, such a good like way to think about it, it's
Well,
something we're always dealing with.
yeah, we're always dealing with it. We're never done. We are done, it's because we're dead, so we don't wanna be done, let's be clear on that. Like, we want to be doing laundry. We want to be doing the daily. We want to be I mean, and it's so funny because I just had a kind of a social friendship issue just this week, and it's literally like we'll be talking and I'll do a podcast and I'll say something and within like 24 hours it's like, "Oh, really? Tell me more." Like so I had like a kerfluffle with some friends and I'm like, "Okay, what's the lesson? What's the lesson? What's the blessing? Keep looking." But when you know that that's where you're headed is looking for the blessing and or the lesson and you have that frame of reference to know this is not God punishing me right now. This is not I've done a bad thing, I didn't repent, I need to and then it'll be fixed or it's just maybe I just needed to learn something. It's not
Yeah.
like anything's out to get me. And what's cool and what I love about you and that because we do talk so often is that you in the few times distance length of whatever that you and I have been working together. We've hit such an interesting stride. And I know there's going to be a ton of people out there listening to this that are going to get what I'm saying here. But you and I have reached such an interesting stride that we've not now gone into like not just working on you and what your plans are and what your goals are, but we've actually get to spend time talking about, you know, afterlife and spirit and spirit guides and you know, all of it, your higher self and dead people and all that. So we aren't just doing, hey, how can I be a better mom, wife, coach, whatever. We're also talking about, you know, what's going on spiritually with you, like
Yeah.
next level spiritually. And so
Yeah.
like the veil and how have you gone since we started working or before what was your background as far as religion or church, or where were you at before you and I got together on this?
Mhm. Um, so I grew up, I mean, technically I grew up, we changed religions halfway through. So technically I grew up, started out Presbyterian, and then my mom thought we should be Catholic. So then we went to being Catholic. And then, but I never really actively practiced either religion, I would say. I mean, I kind of, grew up going to some of that. But then as I got older, we were never avid churchgoers, but what we did do is, we would always like my mom would always encourage us to pray and things like that. So, but when I was doing that, I kind of always just associated it with like a higher being, a higher, something, but I never looked at it very specifically through the lens of God and Jesus, so to speak. And then I kind of grew into, as I got a little bit older, I kind of grew into a space where I started feeling like, okay, it's the universe, it's nature, the kind of Darwin thing where it's like nature is God, like it is all God sort of thing. And then over the past few years, and especially more amped up in working with you, I have really gone to the next level of, okay, there are, there is a I completely believe in a spiritual realm in a very real way, not in a way where it's like, "Oh, yes," no, like in a very concrete, like work with it every day kind of a way.
Yeah.
And I mean, talk about perspective shift. Huge. Absolutely
Mhm.
huge because it's completely changed my perspective on what's important. Because when you really have that kind of I think when you have that kind of an anchor in your life and you have something that you know, like, the only truth is love, like, the only thing that matters is learning and growing and loving, and you really believe that, like, you really, 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 really believe that deep in your heart.
It almost shifts from a belief to a knowing.
Yes. Yeah, like you
Because,
say
like, a
that.
belief is like this thing that floats.
Mhm.
Like, "All right, I just gotta keep my eye on it. I just gotta keep my eye on it, and if I keep my eye, I'm okay, and it's over there still, and I okay." But when you then you cannot believe. Then you can choose to not believe because something bad happens.
Right.
And I think what you're talking about as you're saying it, it's you literally went from a belief in this thing,
Yeah.
this I whatever, I'm being to, "Oh, this is who and where I am and what it is, and this is the is.
Yeah.
This is as real as you and I. I've
Exactly.
experienced it, I feel it, I know it. There's literally hold my feet to the fire. There's no one that's changing my mind on this."
Yes. 100%. And
And
it's
huge. And that to me
huge.
is so huge because it's like now everything becomes real. Now everything becomes tangible and free. I mean, it just shifts from a belief to a knowing when you're given this tangible, like, this is, and so now you're going to go experience it, and then you experience it because someone points it out and goes, "See that right there? When those numbers keep showing up all the time, or when your number keeps showing up all the time, or when I say this is going to I'm seeing this around you, Allison, and then you're like, "Holy shit, Meredith, I just saw exactly what you said." It really takes on this other level of just a part of who you are. It is your fabric. It's not a part of
Exactly.
your fabric. It becomes the fabric of who you are.
Yes. Yeah, and then just completely changing like, when you have that what as I've developed that level of knowing, I feel like it has completely changed my perspective on everything, like, when something happens, like you said, like, what's the lesson? What am I meant to learn here? You know, where are my buttons? That's been huge for me. You and I talk about that a lot. Where are my buttons? Like, where do I need to heal? Why, when somebody says something or does something that affects me, it's because there's a button inside me that's pushable. There's something
Yep.
going on with me that I have to address. And it's really shifted my perspective from being a victim of a situation to being
Mm.
completely empowered in a situation. And I mean, the level of happiness right there that you can just turn up is absolutely incredible. It's
Yeah.
incredible. It's such a shift.
It's such a shift when you take yourself and you go, "I'm not a victim in any of this world." Because when you're at all a victim, people come at you, experiences come at you. You are just like this haphazard being with no ability to make things happen in your life, no ability to control, not in the weird control way, but in the aligned, balanced, grounded control sort of way.
Mhm.
This crazy world that's out in front of us, that we're experiencing all these different personalities and all these different trials and losses and pains and happiness. And you start to recognize, I am a part of this world. But I am not this world. This world is around me. I'm experiencing it, but I'm not victim to it. I can choose to engage.
Yeah.
I can choose to just pay attention. I can choose to be affected. I can choose to go, "Uh-oh, I'm being affected. What's that calling up?"
Yeah.
And so, like, as you're talking about that, I'm watching you go from being here to now I know that there is a spiritual realm, that I am a part of something way bigger than my little avatar here down on earth, that I'm here experiencing things. And so now you've gone into the spiritual realm to fix you, but I know that this is touching everything that you do. It's not just healing you as a mother, you are now mothering, parenting from a different place, you're wifing from a
Definitely.
different place.
Yeah.
Like it's just you're coming from a completely you're daughtering from a different place. So when you look at, and I know you and I talk about this and we're getting really fun into the playground of life in appointment. But when you look at moving into this next chapter here, do you see, I know you do, but how do you see and how has this affected even your view of just the future and how you're going to move into it now that you are inside of this headspace?
Yeah, yeah. Hmm. So I think that I'm moving into the future with a much greater sense of ease in the sense that I think that because my perspective has shifted so much, it's more like, okay, I know when things happen, they're happening for the greatest good for me and for,
Mhm.
for the greatest good for all. So even where I would look at something before and say like, "Oh, this is terrible. I can't believe this happened. I'm so like all that like agony. I don't experience that. Not that I don't ever experience, but I can snap out of that so much more quickly. So I think knowing that I have those tools and kind of like that tool belt and that perspective shift, that it has allowed me to recognize the future with a greater sense of ease. Like I know that everything is going to work out the way it is supposed to work out. And not that I don't have any, like I believe in free will. We all have free will, but it's more of a like a I don't know, like a floating. Honestly, it's just such a greater sense of peace and ease. And hey, I know that there's going to be bumps. Like it's not like I expect, no bumps to come, but when the bumps come, I know that they're to help me, and I know that I'm going to
Yeah.
work through them, and I know I'm going to learn something. I'm going to grow.
Yeah.
So I get it almost like a sense of excitement about it, like what's coming next.
Yeah, it's just such a different way to meet the world because as you were talking and I'm thinking about, the other way of doing spirituality. When something bad happens to you so many times, I mean, and we hear it all the time like, "Oh, there was a tsunami. They're punishing that country." I mean, the insanity of that and how hurtful that one person lives and one person dies, and so they must have been good and they're being punished. It's not a very friendly, growth inspired, love inspired experience, and there is so much good in religion, don't get me wrong, but it's still man-made. I don't care what you
Yeah,
say, it's
humanized.
man-made from something, and so you have to be mindful of how much you're putting that into your body, literally, and mind and heart, and, I mean, what I look at is I look at the results. I look at the results of someone like you who, really craves and really, devours this love of searching and finding and exploring and experiencing, this connection to your higher self and how it's transforming all of your life and your work and your just everything. And I'm like, that's got to be it. Because even if I go inside of myself and I'm like, okay, I see dead people and I know the way this works and I've seen it, and I can go, okay, Meredith, you know everything, you're right. But when I look to someone outside and I go, she's doing the same things that I'm doing, and it's changing her life for the good. And she's becoming more loving and more peaceful and a better mom and a better money earner and a better wife and a better daughter and friend. You can't the proof's in the pudding. The proof's in the pudding. You are moving more towards love than ever. And to me, love is the really the only truth in the entire universe is love. Everything else is stopping love, stopping that flow of love. And to speak of the word flow, we talk about it all the time, but we really started getting into the concept of recognizing, and I've talked about it, here on the podcast before, like being in that flow and recognizing when you're in the flow, which is in that state of perpetual free love and going with it and not stopping any of it and not putting the barricades up and the ego up, and you're in it. You're just in it, and you're going down the river and you feel it and everything's talking to you and you just know. And when you're not, and when you put the fear blocks up, and when you
Mhm.
put the ego up. I just had a great, you know, um, meeting appointment with someone yesterday, and we had this great moment where I'm like, well, what's more important, the way people see you and your ego being boosted, or cash in your pocket? And she's like, cash. I go, good. So who cares what anyone thinks of you? Get the money, because that we don't even realize that sometimes our ego is blocking our flow, and we think, oh, I know what I want. This is a good thing. Not working for money, not worrying about getting paid, seeming like a baller, right? And so when you look at these things and you go, holy crap, I'm not moving forward. I'm stuck. So what is it? And so we talk about the flow all the time. So how do you use on the daily? I guess that's even a good one. How do you use on the daily with your team as a business owner? How do you recognize when you're in and out of the flow? And what does that feel like?
Yeah, that's such a good question because I think the first thing is being able, recognizing your own emotions. If you don't know what you're feeling, and I feel like I've gotten more sensitive to my own feelings. So, as I've gotten more sensitive to my own feelings, I've tried to kind of like you and I say, like gear up
Yeah.
before I go do something. Like before I'm going to have a call with my team, I gear up. Like I get myself in a headspace of where, where do I want to go with this conversation? Like what's of the highest good? What can I do to energize this? But not in a way where it's self-serving. So not like how can I show up and be, the most fabulous me that I can be in a way where it's like robotic. No, not like that. Like how can I serve almost? Like how can I put this in into that flow where I'm just feeling really positive before I go into something. And it's just the first thing is just click, having that click to recognize
Yeah.
how am I feeling right now and what do I need to do to get myself to that better feeling thought. So kind of like working towards that. And that's something I've been much more intentional about over the past, I'd say, I don't know, maybe 2 months. And I noticed a
Yeah.
huge shift in not only how I show up, but then also, which is so interesting because we can't control other people, but we can control ourselves, right? So, how people respond to me, which
Mhm.
is, which I love. And in hindsight, kind of looking back on that is so cool. Um, so, yeah, I think it's the whole like gearing up thing, and that's been huge. And also just trying to like stop and recognize in the moment when I'm starting to, and this is more as a mother kind of a thing, when I'm starting to kind of get, because your kids, they push those buttons and they know exactly where they are and, they can just push you over the edge. So when I start to get to that point, just kind of just stopping and taking a deep breath. And literally, sometimes I will just walk away because
Yeah.
I just need to kind of get back into that headspace before I am reactive.
Yeah, and
So
honoring that, like, I'm getting a little sideways here. I'm getting a little fried. I'm outside of myself right now. I'm getting a little bit too emotional or ego or controlling, because that's what's happening.
exactly.
You're not letting, and that's just being, we have to be human. We can't just be this, spiritual Buddha on the mountain. We have to be in it with humans and small humans and husband humans and all that stuff. So that is really kind of going, okay, here we go. Gladness of heart. Let's get back in there. Let's get back in there. Let's get back. Oh, righty, and we're back.
Yeah,
Like,
tuning
and
back in.
I'm ready. I'm ready. I can do this. I
I'm ready to
swear.
not kill you now.
Exactly. I'd like to, but it's illegal. And so, yeah, and when you were talking about the flow, I was funny because I'm watching your body, and it's just like, okay, it's not, it's the emotional piece, right? But the emotions a lot of times drive the physical. So when you're out of flow, and we hear this on a lot of, self-help and Abraham Hicks, it's dis-ease. It's being out of ease. And where does that find itself in each of us when we are not in our ease, our flow, our go? Is okay, I'm feeling it in my shoulders. I'm okay, tension in the back. Oh, I don't feel that good. Oh, I have a headache, a migraine, my knees hurt, whatever it is we're out of our flow, we're out of our ease. Our emotions are getting askew because we're experiencing the world from this out of whack place.
Yeah,
And now all of a sudden it's affecting our body, and we just think, "Oh, well, I slept wrong. My neck hurts because I slept wrong." Or, "Oh, I lifted something yesterday and my back hurts." But what we're not realizing is all of the energy from the folks in front of us, our children or whatever, and we're not right. We're not where we want to be. And now we're stressed. Our shoulders are up here. We can't talk because we have all of our words stuck in our throat. Our stomach is all, upset because of the fact that we have too much, whatever it is, because we haven't geared up. We haven't done the work to understand the world is still going to keep coming at us. And what
mhm,
you said a minute ago is how your team is now responding to you, or people around you are now responding to you differently because of you're setting the tone. You're setting the tone like, all right, I'm going to meet you guys here. And everyone's like, oh, wait, she's here. Come on, regroup. We got to get there. Like, okay, she's up here. She's ready. She's coming in high. She's coming in hot, she's coming in excited, and she's not going to give in. She's not coming down here. She's not gonna do the so we better gear ourselves up too and meet Alison up here. And have you noticed, because it took me, but I mean, I don't know. My dad used to tell people if I went to prison, I'd be, best friends with the warden in a week because I just do love people. I just have a genuine interest in humans. And and so when I look at when I go places, and my husband, I don't know if I don't know. I think it's Progressive. They have a commercial right now, and it's just like, don't become your parents. I don't know if you've seen it. And like the guy sits in a chair and he like goes, ah, and he goes, yeah, see right there, you can't do that. You can't make that noise. And then it's like the crazy person like me, and they're like, yeah, the waitress doesn't need to know your name. And so Jim always makes fun of me because he's like, yeah, the waitress doesn't need to know your name. I'm like, I've never told a waitress a name, but he's joking with me because I've always somehow get caught up in conversation with, whomever I'm in front of. Doesn't matter, TJ Maxx, someone's always finding me. And do you notice that change that everyone meets you there? Like more people are meeting you that you don't even know, and feeling that aura about you, that you're kind of walking on air a little bit more.
well, I think something I've noticed is I think yes, so, like, kind of when I am and I think it's to kinda go back to what you said, it's not even necessarily that much that I'm, like, going into a different place. I feel like I am the most positive, I am the most in the flow when I am the most true to myself. So
Mhm.
that's been, like, a really interesting shift for me is, like, not trying to be somebody else.
Yeah.
So and even, like, I notice and I've always been all about even before the spirituality thing, like, I've always been all about people working in their strength zone.
Yeah.
So I've been really leaning into that in a really literal way. Not like, okay, work in your strength zone, but you still have to do the shit that you don't really feel like doing just because you have to
Yes.
do it. I'm like, I'm not doing that anymore. I'm not
Right.
doing that because it's not in alignment with who I am. And when I am in alignment with who I am, I do amazing work. I do good work. I do work that's good for me and good for everybody else. Like it's just this like positive experience, and it's like a, double, triple, quad. It's such a better place to be. So when I'm the most myself that I can be, I feel like I'm in that flow. And when I am in that space and when I'm meeting people at that space, it's funny because I've noticed that I am more, just kind of naturally drawn to like what you're saying, kind of drawn to that same kind of a vibe. Like I'm drawn to people that are having those types of conversations and feeling that sort of a way. But also, and I think almost more importantly, things that are not in that sort of more positive space when I'm in that, and as I've been in that more of the time, a lot of that, I don't wanna say negativity, but things that don't align with that are falling away, and I'm
Yep.
noticing the fall away, and I think at first I sort of started to see it, and it's almost like you kinda wanna grab onto it,
Yep.
but then
Yep.
you realize you're like, it's such a freeing thing to let that stuff go,
Yeah.
to
And
let
allow it.
go
Yeah.
of all of those things, like the stuff at work that doesn't serve me, the stuff at home that doesn't serve me, the people that don't serve me. And
Yeah.
not just that it's about self-serving, but just, about keeping that
Alignment.
really
Yeah. The
going. Yeah,
right. The
exactly.
people that are in alignment with you or not in alignment with you,
Yeah,
or the situations and honoring that. And I keep going back to seeing that when we're having this conversation is continually honoring, and this might sound hokey, who God wants you to be.
yeah,
And stop trying to be who the world wants you to be and society wants you to be and what you think you're supposed to be and going whoa 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 whoa, this is out of the flow, which means this might be out of what quote God wants me to be or what my higher self wants me to be or what the universe wants me to be. And so tick 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 back to the center and do what is in the flow instead of controlling and being a member of just the normal society because it doesn't feel right anymore. And now I'm
yeah.
so in it. I'm so in it that I can feel it within a moment's notice. A moment I can feel and go, wait, something's off.
It's super uncomfortable.
Super uncomfortable.
Yeah, it's uncomfortable because I feel like I've been more aware of it and developed a greater sense of sensitivity to it. So when I go into something not in that space, it's like, your jeans are too damn tight. Like it's like you want to wriggle out of it. It's so
Yep.
uncomfortable to the point where it's like, all right, I want to get out of this space. I want to get out of this situation.
It's so, so true. So true. And recently, we have embarked on, and I don't even remember how. Maybe you brought it up, and then we just kind of went there, and it was obvious. But like your spirit guides, and what that means to you, and how you use that in your life.
It's huge. It's huge, and I never ever thought that it would be huge for me. So it's been, um, oh man, I don't even know how to start with that. It's almost like indescribable, but I think every day I have a little bit of time in the morning for myself. I take some time and just kind of, I do like a little meditation and just kind of like say gratitudes and stuff like that. 20 minutes maybe, that's all. But it sets the tone for my day. And I in when I am doing that, I often like, I will literally like talk to my spirit guides. And it's not like I hear someone talking back to me per se, but just I know that there is a presence there with me, and that the comfort that I have from that is, I don't it's like indescribable. It's such a comfort, and it's such like a the sense of knowing that that is there really takes the aloneness out of life.
And out of this journey too, like the
Exactly.
spiritual journey.
Yeah.
because sometimes I like, you and I talked recently, it's kinda lonely, like, I don't really have anyone except for clients to talk to about this because Jim's kind of on his own deal, and he'll go, "How's your appointment?" I go, "Awesome," and then I move on, and so, like,
Yeah.
even inside of my own household or friendships, it's just different than the conversations that you and I have, and it can be isolating. It can make you feel that you're weird, different, um, kind of out there on your own. And so knowing that you have these beings, this energy, that these ancestors or people that are connected to you, these angels that are connected to you that fill the room when it's empty, that's kind of next level. That's like, you got this. You got this.
Yeah.
You got this. And I think that does change it, and it puts, actually, as I'm saying it, I do that all the time with you. As I'm saying it, they're going, and that takes a lot of the pressure off of your humans around you to be too much for you, that they can't. That's not their path to be that, kickstand for you today. You have
Yeah.
to kind of use those extra spirits and energy guides because your husband, your kids, your friends, they're not going to show up in the same way.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
they fill the room for you. They fill your heart in those, places that our people around us maybe necessarily can't ever, maybe
Mm.
never ever will. And so that allows us to continue on our journey emboldened to really do great things and to know that we are supported, we are loved, we are not alone, even when we feel like we might be, because our touching people, the people we can actually touch, our
Yeah.
people, um, aren't gonna be able to show up in the same way.
Yeah.
And that's the falling away, and that's the our rocks, that's the people that are gonna fall away, and trusting in all of that insecurity, in that ebb and flow, and trusting in the process, and, "Okay, I'm not sure I wanted to let go of that friend, but I did, so I guess I'm gonna go with it, and it's okay because I have my guides, and I have my people, and I have my room is filled. My room is filled, and I love that visual right now. The room is filled, and it just feels really, really nice and good, and, like, I don't need to go anywhere else.
Mhm. Yeah,
And
don't need to go so much out of myself, and it's funny when you said about, like, your the friends or family needing to be, like, your kickstand, for me, it's like, think about how much that's a lot of pressure for other people,
Mhm.
especially because 'cause I'm an intense person. I
Yeah.
get, for anybody, but yeah, like, that's, if I'm not or anybody's not filling themselves up or being able to, kind of stand firmly on your own 2 feet with yourself, your spirit, whatever you have around you, your energy, it's like, you know, we kind of like we put a lot on those around us to try to fill that void.
Yeah.
And I think that, yeah, this has, I don't want to say filled the void for me, because I don't think we have voids per se, but that sort of mentality, it's sort of like, um, it's it fills me up in a way that I can't really even like verbalize.
Mhm. Mhm. And it's funny because too, when you get in your flow, is it's you're very, selfish with it, like, you wanna stay in that vibe, and if someone
Yeah.
takes you out of it, like, a kid or your spouse or whatever, a phone call or a crappy email from a client or whatever it is, even if it's like a shitty, social media post, you're like, "Oh my god, you took me out of my Buddha space," like, "You took me off the mountain,"
Yeah.
and and it can be jarring, but that's part of the work, is being, doing, existing within and without and with people, and still knowing how to get back to it and get back to it and get back to it and get back in it and go sit on the toilet for a minute and take 2 breaths and get back in it and gear up and align and ground and be in it and go back out again and do it again, and knowing that you have that home base of self,
Yeah.
that home base of spirit, And so, I mean, it's so cool to talk to you about this and share with, everyone out there that's listening, because I know that I have so many amazing female entrepreneurs, which is so funny because that would be my absolute number one client profile is female entrepreneurs. Out of anything. I think it's because and I because I've looked at it, I'm like, "God, why," and it's because it's lonely out there.
It's
It's
the most
lonely.
busy, surrounded with people lonely that you can be because 'cause
Yeah,
you're so busy, you have so much around you, and yet you're giving you're giving all your energy away, you know? I that's how I feel like I was we talked about that before, like, so depleted, and then, yeah, you need to, like, have that refocus, get back to the flow, like you said.
yeah,
And I found that the more, you help me kind of navigate this and recognize the flow and stay in the flow when you get pulled out of it, it's almost like a whiplash, like you're out of it and then you come back into it much more quickly than before. Like,
much.
man, I can think a, a, a phone call or an email from a client that was maybe upset or, had a certain tone to it. That would like rock me for 2 days.
Yeah,
It
yeah,
would really mess me all up in the head, but now I am in such a different space that when that happens, I bounce back so much more quickly. And it doesn't even take me as deep as it would take me before, you
yeah,
know? And
yeah,
I know that's partially just experience in doing it, but it is definitely coming from that flow place like you're talking about.
yeah, and I think the female entrepreneur when you're an entrepreneur, you give 3,000% to your company and your whatever what you own or what you're doing, and then, a good majority of, the women that I'm speaking to are also moms, so there's then the guilt, there's the balance, and I think that having sometimes the spiritual journey people look at like, "Oh, I ain't got time for that," like, "That's not my thing." And it's like, it's everybody's thing. If
Yeah.
you're listening to this, it's your thing. And if you're friends with someone that's listening to this, it's your thing. Because what it is it's actually a journey back to self and the
Yes.
unlearning and the
Mhm.
really truly knowing yourself and being inside of yourself maybe for the first time in your life
Yeah.
and taking all of that out of the atmosphere and just bringing it back home and going, all right, where am I headed now? And what am I doing? And how can I be a mom, even if it's only 2 hours a day that I see my kids? How can I show up in love instead of in guilt and in feeling bad about myself and in, all of those drippy negative feelings? How can I be on this planet and and be inside of the state of love, be in my flow. And there's so many women that are gonna be listening to this going, "I'll have what she's having." I'll have what she's having in the
And what I'm having is Meredith.
in the spirit of Harry Met Sally. But I so appreciate you taking the time today. I so appreciate you in general and, spending time with me on, the weekly. I love it. I love our time together. I love exploring, all your fun things that you've got going on and healing together because that's truly what we're doing. Every time you learn something, I learn something. And it's just so great because as I'm seeing it inside of you, I'm like, oh, wait, look over there. Look over there inside of her head. Oh, look, wait over there inside of her spiritual realm. That's so cool. What just happened over there? So I so appreciate you. And, you're in, I don't know if we mentioned that you're in Westchester, Pennsylvania. I don't know if we mentioned that. So,
Mhm.
Alison's at, it's Keller Williams?
Yep, at the Moore Maguire Group at Keller Williams,
Yeah.
real estate in Westchester, PA. We can help people anywhere with real estate in the country, though. If you need
Oh,
anything,
okay.
anytime,
So just
call
reach
me,
out to her
reach
and you'll
out
be
to me.
talking
Yeah.
to a soulful spirit whom I love more than anything in the whole world. And so thank you guys so much for listening today. I really appreciate it. Thank you, Allison, for coming. and spending this time with me. And if you know someone that wants to hear this or needs to hear this or is struggling as an entrepreneur or whatever, as a mom, as a person, please share this podcast with them because there's a lot of people that could use to hear something maybe different than they're used to. And if not, I will see you here next week, same time, same sandbox. Thanks, guys. Thanks for listening. If you would like to connect on a more personal level, head over to meredithwillits.com or on Instagram at Meredith with a Y for behind-the-scene footage and outtakes. Please subscribe and come back each week for more Meredith with a Y. Thanks again for listening. Cheers.